Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let the night settle around you like a soft, deep blanket. Imagine a wilderness so wide that it seems to hold the whole world, cold and silver under a moon the color of melted copper, forests that breathe and sleep in the hush of winter, and a great frozen lake that mirrors the sky. In that hush we begin, a hush that is full of small sounds, the hush of heavy antlers moving through powdery snow, the whisper of spruce boughs as a soft wind passes, the faint, hollow note of an owl folding its wings and floating between trunks. Listen. There is a single long sound that rolls through the dark, not quite a human sound, and not quite the voice of any creature you've known. It is the half-sigh of something large and wounded, and it comes from the rim of the tamarack wood. Imagine, in the moonlight, a moose stepping slowly onto the white stage of the lake. He moves with a noble fatigue. His head is bowed beneath antlers like gnarled branches, and the snow beneath him gathers red as he drags himself across it. Every breath he takes is smoky in the night air. He is a living mountain. He lifts his great nose to the wind, senses some distant danger, and for a long moment stands still, as if listening to the whole world. There's a far howl on the air, the sound that sends the moose running toward shelter. It is the cry of wolves, thin, hungry, and urgent. They come as if drawn by something older than hunger, by the ancient law of the chase. The moose's steps fail. He pitches to his knees, tries again, struggles into the tamaracks, and vanishes into black trunks. On the frozen lake, two figures move young, tireless, and weary in a very different way. One is a boy of about 18, his face bruised, an arm held in a makeshift sling. He keeps going, even as exhaustion pins him to the snow. The other is Wabigoon Wabi, a lithe young hunter whose eyes have the steady calm of someone born to track and hunt. He whistles once, a long, bright call that slices through the cold and reaches his falling friend. That cry brings the boy up again, staggering, and together they press on toward the shelter of a tamarack line where a camp waits, the promise of warmth and safety under a sky full of stars. You can feel the cold biting their cheeks. You can sense the last of the day's light slipping away. The wolf pack answers again, closer now, a chorus rolling over the ice like a tide. The two slip through the trees, and soon they reach a river bend where a fire glows in a shelter of bark and fur. Mukoki, the old guide and friend, calls a name back into the night, and his voice is like a long, sure rope that ties these men to the place they have made their own. In those days, imagine all of it like a painting that is slowly coming into focus. News moves like a river around the quiet trading posts. A man once walked out of London into this land of ice and green to become a factor at a Hudson's Bay post. He married into the native village, and from that union came two children who were the turning point for many lives in the north. Wabigoon, who learned to be two kinds of man at once, and his sister Minitaki, who carried the wild beauty of the forest and the gentleness of more than one world. is not a story only about bringing home furs or hunting wolves. It becomes a story of belonging, of family ties that cross cultures, of young friendships taking root like hardy trees in rocky soil. Wabi studies at school in a far city, grows to know both worlds. Back home, his sister learns the ways of the woods, and in their elder years, they are both beloved by the old factor and his wife. Into this close world creeps danger, a chieftain of outlaw men, Woonga, who hates, hunts, and kills. He is driven deep into the wilderness. He becomes an outlaw whole tribes yield to him, and a feud grows so vicious it reaches from log cabin to birch canoe. You following, drifting with that steady ease of a river that knows the bends under snow. The years loop and turn. The boys Wabi and his city friend Roderick become brothers of choice. Roderick, called Rod, finds himself lured by maps of pines and rivers into a life of cold. And when Wabi invites him that first winter, Rod steps into a world bigger than any textbook. Imagine paddling a bark canoe up the Sturgeon, an unbroken arch of forest on either side, sunlight like coin on the water. It is a palette of greens and golds, then the first flash of black when a bear slips behind driftwood, and Rod's first long shot. He tumbles into the river, his hair slick with ice, and Wabi reaches to pull him back, a handshake with danger and triumph. You can taste the rich coffee, the steam curling into biting air, and smell the cooking meat. The boys build a camp of cedar boughs in the dusk, and by the warmth they tell each other stories and roll back their own fears and tiredness into laughter. Minitaki steps into their lives like a living thread of the wilderness, a graceful girl who moves like the wind through grass. She is clever, patient, and when she and Rod first meet by the lake, your heart too feels it. The small bright spark that happens in some encounters. The post is a board of faces and a bustle of fur, yet beyond it lies landscape where wolves move like a whisper and moose speak with hooves. One afternoon in the cool hush, Rod spots a black mass. A bear climbs the drift. His shot does not stop it, and he tumbles from his canoe. Wabi laughs and tugs him ashore, and a bear steak is on the spit before the stars lift their cold lids. You can picture Rod wrapped in dry clothes, his teeth chattering at first, and then warm and slow beside the fire. Sleep comes heavy and full of dreams at last, dreams that will grow later into memories, the sort men call back to a hearth when the taste of summer is long gone. One morning, the path leads to a cabin whose silence smells like old wood and older secrets. In the dimness, the explorers find skeletons in a ruined room, two of them, locked in some embrace of death, and one holds a knife in the ribs of the other. The chest tightens at the sight, and the boys step back. Fear is sweet with curiosity. Dread tastes like a hero's bite of an apple in a cold orchard. They lift a buckskin bag and find nuggets of gold inside, small green-black stones. The discovery is a thrill that sends a new heat into their hands. Gold, enough to make a life change hands. The map is tucked in a roll of birch bark in the bone-cold fist of a skeleton, but most of it is written faintly and hidden under layers of bark. In time, eyes grow sharper and musters of patience begin. Mukoki peels the bark into thin layers, and when the topmost leaf is gently spread under the light, names and crude lines appear. John Ball, Henry Langlois, and Peter Plant, 3 men, bound by a promise to each other to share what they have found. And the map, careful, crabbed marks, points to waterfalls and a cabin hidden among cliffs. Can you feel the hush fall on your shoulders as they read? The world seems to hold its breath. The birch film lifts the mystery like a veil and reveals enough. The first falls lie somewhere below within the chasm. The creek flows out, a long chain to a third fall, and somewhere beyond lies a treasure that put blood into the hands of desperate men. Rod holds the flimsy map beneath the lamplight and guesses distances. His fingers tremble. He imagines a river and a valley and yearns. In the nights that follow, wolves cry to the moon. One memory lingers: Wolf, a mangy, half-wild dog taken in and taught by Wabigoon. There is a heavy sadness behind Mukoki's eyes when the old hunter speaks of the time wolves tore his wife and child from him. A terrible part of his soul is always set on balance, the rest caught between grief and a disciplined love for life in the wild. On certain nights, clear, piercingly cold nights, Mukoki becomes restless. He calls these wolf nights, and it feels to him as though the very air sings the call of the pack, a summons that has nothing to do with human time. The captived wolf at their camp is a mirror to Mukoki's memory. As the boy listens, you can feel that Rod's pity grows into something deeper, something like the turning of an inner compass that will guide him into a new type of understanding. Days become a steady ritual of traps and tracking. The old Indian sets mink and fox traps with the expertise of a single steady hand. He hides bait in little twig houses to keep the snow from covering the traps. Then one night, on top of a flat rock, he arranges a springing trap of blood to call wolves into a place where the hunters will be ready. There is an exquisite cruelty and an exquisite wisdom to this. The hunters call the wild in such a way as to gather it into a single tableau, a lesson in patience and in the cool, clean strike of life's necessity. Under the full moon, wolves answer, calling to each other from far places until the plain seems alive with their sound. The captive wolf cries, and around a rock a pack gathers, the kindred coming silently to the feast. The 3 sit in their trees with rifles like friends that know the heart of the man who holds them, and the night explodes. Shots ring and fates are sealed. You can imagine the cold spattered with fur and falling like snow as the hunters break the hunt's long hush. In the days after, the men sort traps and skins, and the winter moves in slow circles. Snowstorms come white mounds of silence that bury the cabin's door and make the world a muffled hush. For 3 days, the storm is a blanket. The hunters are snowed in, and the wind weaves soundless architecture around them, and their laughter burrows into it like a bright bird searching for a nest. When it finally clears, they set off again, their trap lines shining with new hope. The bustle of the trading post becomes a distant, almost imagined week. They find fox and fisher, and lynx and wolves, and send the pelts to trade. The old skeleton's trick of having the birch bark map draws the young hunter into a hunger as keen as any wolf-s, to follow the creek and the falls, to discover the third fall and the treasure beyond. With the spring of this desire, Mukoki becomes their steady guide once more. His travels through mountain passes are wild tales in themselves. He searches far and wide, and at times Rod goes alone into the narrow chasm that scours like a wound through the granite. There the creek sings under thin ice, the walls rise like black towers, and light moves slow and noble as a king's messenger. Rod goes deeper and discovers, among the rocks and cold-gloved pebbles, a perfect silver fox. It is a sight to stop his breath, a creature meant to be held and honored like a prize born of both fortune and grace. He tucks it into his pack and presses on. As night drops in the chasm, dreams carry him like a tide into a whisper of a future and the past. He dreams of skeletons with their knuckles white on the birch bar, of crumpled maps and whispers of rivers like threads across his mind. When he wakes, he carefully peels a layer of bark from the rolled clue and sets it beneath the lamp. Words appear, making a map to more than treasure the names of men, a signed pledge, and the path to waterfalls. The first fall at the head of the chasm, a second farther down, and a third far away. On the old bark, it is written men who found gold and made vows in the glare of a new day. The map tells of distance that Rod measures not in miles, but in possibility. The third fall calls him like a bell. You can feel his eagerness as keen and clean as the tang of cold water. The map suggests a river pushing toward the east and then north, as if the land itself were bending to hold a secret in its palms. There is danger close by tracks of men who walk in snow as quietly as the wind. A single spy has seen Rod in the gorge and crawled away like a wolf. Wabi finds footprints sometimes where he least expects them. Little moccasin heels that bite the snow like the signature of a friend who is not there. And once, on the long blue horizon, a burning pine shoots up one flame that turns sky silver into copper. The hunters stand and count the sparks. Soldiers' guns boom, perhaps, but this is not the sound of welcome. Mukoki's jaw sets. Something older than fear drives him. The last sliver of day dies down, and fire burns into night. The three read the signs, and a plan is born. It is not the plan of rash men. Mukoki says wait, for the outlaws are numbers, and they would be like stepping into a swarm. Better to keep watch, keep calm, and remember the map that is new in their hands. But fate has a different rhythm. One evening, when the righteous hush that wraps a camp at midnight is broken by smoke and sudden shots, terror sharpens like a knife. The burning cabin is a mass of coals and memory, and in the snow, a great man lies dead with half his head blown away, an awful sight that rattles courage even out of Mukoki's old bones. For a heartbeat, the world seems to tilt. Are you with them, feeling that tight bolt of sickness that comes when danger makes itself most intimate? The hunters race down to find the ruin and are soon in the middle of a trail of men fleeing the scene, men who carry Wabi as a captive. Their tracks are different, and the mood of the chase is now acute as a spear of light. For this is the point where your heart pulls hard for the brave ones. Mukoki and Rod move with that tense grace that only long journeys teach, fast, patient, sure-footed, and keen. They find tracks, 5 sets of snowshoes, and in one the stride shortens, the sign that Wabi struggles, perhaps is tied, perhaps is wounded. The dash across a frozen plain leads to a watchful hill where Woonga's band has its fires. You can see Wabi walking with his arms bound and the leader's gun heavy at his hip. It is a scene packed with dread, the sky inked by smoke and flame, men in the open like dark echoes. Mukoki and Rod decide on a bold move. Mukoki, always the steady one, takes cover and sends a fight like the northern wind, quiet, sudden, and precise. He fires and brings their leader down with a hard, merciful thud, and in moments, the contest is done. Wabi stands clutching another man's rifle in his hands. His own lost weapon returns to him, and you can feel his relief like warm water poured slowly into a cold cup. As the sky folds into the night, they have a choice: to flee, to fight, to hide. The 3 choose flight. The Woongas will follow, as wolves do, their numbers crowding the chasms and ridges. The hunters steal into the deep cleft where the mountain has split its flank, a narrow fissure like a secret throat. Snow begins to fall, gently at first, then heavier, a cover of white that muffles all travel and erases tracks. The hunters climb the fissure and feel each breath like a blessing. The storm is a friend now, and as flakes fall, the world muffles to silence and mercy. You can imagine Mukoki standing at the top of the fissure, his eyes like a hunter's watchlight. He calls nothing. He only listens to the long sigh of the mountain. And we know he is a man who will die for the people he loves. They slip away southward, the 3 like a bead in a thread of snow. And for nights they march among endless plains until, at last, unsmoked and earned, the lakes and trees of civilization come into view. As dawn strews long shadows through spruce, they find Wabinosh House, and it is not quite the same as when they left. A company of soldiers, flags, and a bugle sounds in the settled air, like a promise that the world can hold justice as well as scar. There are hurried meetings, and Wabi returns with the joy of survival sketched in his smile. Rod's return is bittersweet. He must go home, but carries in his arms more than furs and gold. He carries a slice of courage like a warm stone. You can almost hear the scrape of a sled in the snow as he prepares to leave, his pockets heavy with coins, and his heart heavier still with plans for next spring. To come back from Minotaki, for the map shows a river that will lead, with patience and the right tools, to riches and answers. When you let the story settle like settled snow in your mind, there is a soft surprise at the center of it. This tale is not only about wolves or gold or even the narrow, sharp grief of losing someone who is dear. It is about learning a larger word for friendship. Rod learns how a rifle is a companion and a map becomes a promise. Wabi learns that the heart must be shared between two worlds, and Mukoki, the old hunter, teaches them about the great cords of love that tie a family to a place and to each other. In your own quiet space, feel that warmth relax the corners of your day. The forest at dusk has no hurry now. The moose is resting. The wolves have gone to dream in their yards beneath drifted branches, and the man-made light in a far-off post draws a soft circle in the dark. Imagine yourself sitting at that post's window with a hot cup, the cold outside, but the room safe. Let the images of the chasm and the waterfall turn slow and gentle in your mind. Let the silver fox slip over your thoughts like a small, bright dream. Let the crack of the hunter's rifle fade now into the steady rhythm of your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Count with the exhale, 1, 2, 3. Feel the story untie itself from your shoulders, and let the last note of the night song be low and warm as a lullaby. You have followed feet in the snow, smelled the smoke of the camp, and seen the crackle of small fires on a night filled with stars. You have watched men who were brave and sometimes frightened, who loved deeply and who kept going. Let their courage settle softly into the stillness that is already gathering at the edges of your awareness. The map, the chasm, the wolves, the fire, these belong now to the quiet fold of the story you keep in your heart. Let them rest there, like smooth stones placed carefully in a pocket. Let your breath slow. Let your heart beat slow. Imagine your eyelids as curtains, closing. Outside the window of your sleep, the world is wide and kind. You are warm, safe, held. Allow sleep to come like snow falling, gentle, thick, complete. You have walked with friends on a long winter's trail. Now rest. Let the cold melt into dream, and let the dream carry you, slow and steady, into the first sweet hush of sleep.